107.7 Pulse FM, home of the 2019 federal election for Surrey and its neighboring cities. Hashtag Pulse Politics.
The Canadian federal election is coming up on October 21st. Today's featured debate is Cloverdale-Langley. My name is Tara Lopez. I'm joined by Pulse FM's news director, Kevin Diakiw. Good morning, Kevin. Thanks so much for joining us today on the program. We do have candidates in studio joining us from Cloverdale-Langley. We were hoping Conservative Tamara Jensen and Green Party's Caleb Nutbrown could join us. However, they did decline our request for them to be on the program. They were invited, though. NDP's Rae Banwarie is right here in studio together with Liberals' John Aldag. So before we get started in our intense questions for this debate, if we could kindly ask you to introduce yourselves to the listeners. Just mention your name and the party which you represent. Go ahead.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is John Aldag, and I'm the Liberal Party candidate for Cloverdale-Langley City.
Good morning. My name is Rae Banwarie, and I'm the candidate for Cloverdale-Langley City for the NDP.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's really nice to have you here. An exciting riding we have going on here. We were talking just a little bit just before we started here about how different this kind of riding is. You got about 3 different municipalities you're dealing with here, yes?
Correct, yes. We have Langley City, we have the Township of Langley, and then the City of Surrey, all within this riding of Cloverdale-Langley City.
So spinning plates really with issues, a little bit different flavor in each of those ridings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
What I'd like to do first, guys, is I want to talk about what your motivation is for running for political office, and also what you see as the top issue in your ridings. And obviously, you've got 3 sort of different areas that there are different issues, perhaps. But I want you to pick one main issue in the riding. So maybe Liberal John Aldag, we'll start with you. What is your motivation for running, and what do you see as the main issue in the riding?
Well, I was in the Federal Public Service with Parks Canada, managing national parks and national historic sites for over 30 years prior to my entry into politics. So my entire adult career was based on public service. In about 2012, I was the acting superintendent at Pacific Rim National Park Reserve, and under the Harper government, I had to lay off all of my scientists. That was very concerning for me because we were moving away from evidence-based decision-making. And so I felt that it was time to really have a look at where the country was going. I was unhappy, and I wanted to get involved. And so one thing led to another, and it ended up being running for office was how I decided to pursue that. And in 2015, I was elected as the Member of Parliament for Cloverdale-Langley City. I have spent time trying to restore some of the environmental protections that were lost, getting back to evidence-based decision-making. But I found that the last 4 years really was a continuation of public service. So I've spent 4 years and 2 years leading up to the 2015 election talking to citizens. And the number one issue that I've heard, to the second part of your question, has been affordability. The riding of Cloverdale-Langley City is the second youngest in the province of BC, and so we have lots of young families. We also have seniors, and I hear day after day, door after door, that families are struggling. It's from housing to raising kids to saving for retirement, and so those that's the main issue that I've really pursued over the last 4 years. And I think that over the course of the next half hour, we'll have a chance to talk about some of the other priorities that I've heard on the doorsteps and through my work as the Member of Parliament over these last 4 years.
Okay, thank you very much, John Aldag. Rae Banwarie, same question. What motivates you to run for this office, and what do you see as the main issue out there?
Thanks for having us and being able to talk to our listeners today. So my background is in policing. I was with the RCMP for over 20 years. Most of it, all my patrol was over on the island, came over here in federal policing, has been working in, I worked in national security, I worked in the money laundering unit, federal drugs, and border integrity, just to name a few. I got involved in politics, or have decided to step forward in politics, because of all of the issues that I see that need to be addressed in our communities, not only here in the Lower Mainland, but across Canada. I was the national president for the Mounted Police Professional Association of Canada. We were the group that fought to have a union, and we took on the Conservative government, Harper, because they do not like, even to this day, organized labor. We had to go all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada to get a union for our national police force. We were successful in 2015 at the Supreme Court, a 6-1 majority decision. through that capacity and being a board member for the Canadian Police Association, I also met a lot of members of parliament from all different stripes and senators. And I kept on getting the same message coming back to me saying, Rae, this is something you should become involved in. This is something that you need to think about down the road. And from representing thousands of members and their families in the policing world, looking at issues of safety, public safety, as everybody knows, in Surrey is a big issue. These are things that drove me towards getting more involved in politics. I have a family that lives here too in Cloverdale. We've been here for 14, 15 years. And looking after the safety of my family and other families is paramount and very important for me. So that is the primary reason for getting involved.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
You're listening to Pulse Politics. Today's featured debate is Cloverdale-Langley. We're going to be taking a quick little 2-minute break, and when we come back, we are going to be spinning the wheel of issues. And what that is we cover various topics: housing, crime, affordability, transportation, healthcare, the environment, jobs, and we'll be asking our candidates to speak on those various topics, depending where the wheel actually falls. We also have one of these, so if things get out of line, they start bashing other candidates or other political parties, or they go over time, then they will be hearing that bell. So just to make sure everyone's well behaved. Are we ready to spin this wheel of issues, Kevin?
Absolutely.
All right, let's give it a whirl. And the first one is crime.
Yeah. So we'll start with Liberal John Aldag. Crime. What do you see the federal government being able to do about this?
Well, as Rae had mentioned in his opening comments, I do hear the third topic that I hear about is community safety and crime. Mm-hmm. I'm really pleased with our platform. One of the things we have to really look at is guns and gangs in our community. And one of our commitments is to take assault-style weapons off of the market, out of the hands of Canadians through a buyback program. We feel that assault-style rifles are made for killing and that they don't have a place in our communities. We also are looking at having the ability for municipalities to look at putting greater restrictions on the use of handguns within their jurisdiction. We have also looked at supporting really by increasing the resources for the RCMP and Canada Border Services Agency to stem the flow of illegal weapons coming into Canada. And really that's where our biggest challenge is. It's looking at how we can better secure our ports and borders from having illegal weapons come in. So those are a couple of small of important steps. I don't know where we're at with time, and so I'll let Rae make his comments on this very important topic as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to ask you, with regards to the guns and gangs and taking away the assault rifles, the counter to that usually is that you can go ahead and implement laws and policies to extricate those from the public. But the bad guys are never going to listen to that. So the very people you want to take those from just aren't going to be listening to you.
Right, and that's where we have to have increased capacity for enforcement. I believe that we also need to work with the communities, and so our government in our last mandate did commit funds to the Safer program in Surrey. We've committed tens of millions of dollars to fighting organized crime across the country. These types of initiatives, you're talking about taking the guns out of the hands of the criminals. And there is money coming to British Columbia through the last budget over a 5-year period. So there is ongoing funding to help fight that right here within our community of Surrey.
Okay. Thank you very much, John Aldag. Rae Banwarie, same question. What about crime?
This is a very, very big issue that I've been hearing at the doorsteps talking to people. It's significant, as everybody knows that lives here in Surrey. The amount of gun violence and shootings are happening. It's out of control. But not just here in Surrey, in the Lower Mainland as a whole. Coming from a policing background, one of the fundamental problems we've had for how many years since the Harper Conservatives, even now with the current Liberal government, they have not stepped up to the plate and given the money to the National Police Force so you have enough RCMP officers. It's all great to talk about programs that they're going to implement. Where have you been for the past 3 years or for the past 8 years? You haven't been there. You have not given the RCMP the amount of money to have the correct amount of boots on the ground. That is one of the fundamental things you must have in place if you're going to tackle the crime issue. So it's great to hear all this fluff about programs and everything else, but you need people there on the streets that will implement these programs, and we have not had that. That is one of the fundamental cornerstones that must be changed. And in my capacity, once we're successful, we get to Ottawa, I will ensure that that change comes to reality. The NDP, in terms of the handguns, I have a lot of friends who are law-abiding people, and they have handguns. Those people are not going to be the ones committing the crimes. An AK-47 is not meant to go out deer hunting. It's there for one specific reason. That's to kill people. So these are the kinds of things, municipalities have to have the ability to implement their programs if it comes to restricting firearms and banning stuff. But the federal government must have a hand and a significant role to play in those issues too as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rae Banwarie. Now I have to follow up on this. It's great to say we need more boots on the ground. It's great to say we need to hire more RCMP officers, but as you well know, probably better than most, is the RCMP is facing a bit of a hiring dilemma, that there just aren't the kind of people out there to hire in those places. There's just no appetite for it. How are you going to change that?
Well, you have to show that comes from the type of work that they do, the quality of work they do. Here in the Lower Mainland, they don't have enough police officers, for one thing. You need to have municipal, provincial, federal government come to the table, look at the issues, and come up with a holistic approach to change that. That is the only way you're going to get movement, and that's the only way you're going to move the needle on this significant matter.
Okay, I guess what I'm saying is the baby boom is moving into retirement, and we have a shortage of personnel.
Well, they have increased their ability or what they're looking for in terms of people. That ties to as well with the immigration policies we need to have. Okay. We need more people coming to Canada, but just not any and everybody. You need good, qualified, skilled people as well that will come in to develop our society, to make it what we need to have, so that you do have the people, you do have the bodies working to continue to grow our economy and grow our societies.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could, I'd like to make a comment, and it's simply that when Rae talks about boots on the ground, we have to be really careful about jurisdictions. The municipalities are the ones who set their policing ratios and fund policing in the communities. So the city of Surrey is able to set their targets for the number of police officers and compared to number of citizens. Langley City does the same thing. Township of Langley does the same thing. And so the federal government pays 10% of policing costs. Ultimately, it's the municipalities who need to decide how many police officers they're going to fund. The federal government has some ability to help, and our government in the past 4 years did invest very heavily in RCMP headquarters and allowing the processing of criminal investigations. But ultimately, when you talk about boots on the ground, the municipalities have to be there. They have to make the decisions. They have to find the funding. Yeah. And I think that's a really important discussion that has to happen at the local level.
That's an excellent point, John Aldag. But of course, I think Rae Banwarie was talking about CSB and federal jurisdiction of the RCMP, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Back to the wheel, I think, eh?
Yes, you're listening to Pulse Politics. Today's featured debate is Cloverdale-Langley. Joining us in studio, Liberals John Aldag and NDP's Rae Banwarie. We get to spin the wheel of issues yet another time.
And what are we going to land on this time?
It is transportation.
A hot button here. I think we start with NDP's Rae Banwarie. Transportation, what's broken and how do we fix it?
There is a huge dilemma when it comes to transportation in the Lower Mainland. Before I moved to the Lower Mainland, I lived in Winnipeg for some time. And I remember I used to be able to take a bus from the downtown core city, Winnipeg, to go to one of the universities. The buses came every 15 minutes. And I look at a city like that has all of our environmental issues, all of the snow, all of the cold, all of the weather, and we live in Lotus Land. And you tell me that we cannot have transportation that is more timely, more effective, more buses, something as significant as the SkyTrain. I talked to the CBC about this recently. The SkyTrain, in my opinion, should not only come to Langley, it should go further. It should go down to the valley. It should go as far as Chilliwack, because you're talking about thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that will use that program in itself if you're looking just at the SkyTrain. The other issues we have to look at too as well is municipal city, within the city, the ability to be able to go and catch a bus and have more of it more frequently, not just for the young people or people using it to go to work, but for seniors, for transportation. A lot of the times, getting from point A to point B, it's almost impossible if you're going to try to drive, commuting. So our infrastructure needs to be beefed up significantly within these cities, not only here, Surrey, but Langley, the township, Vancouver. You need to expand the network so that more people are able to use it. It's more cost effective. These are things that need to happen today, not 5-10 years from now. So the NDP is committed to these sorts of things, but also as well to ensure that we move towards greener technologies. Our buses should be electric. Why are we still using the fossil fuel buses? We have the capacity, we have the ability. We need to move towards that direction to protect the environment as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rae Banwarie. Now, I have to follow up on this. The SkyTrain out to the valley. Now, of course, the stopping point for us, the speed bump at TransLink, has been finance. So do I hear you saying that the NDP will finance the SkyTrain all the way out to the valley?
No, what I'm saying is we need to bring the other partners into this discussion. We need to bring the mayor of Abbotsford in. We need to bring the mayor of Chilliwack in. We need to bring the bodies that are going to be impacted because they represent the people that live in those cities. You need to have a lot of these situations. You need to have a holistic approach if you're going to create the kind of change that everybody wants. You can't do a one-off. If you do a one-off, you will never be successful. This is how I look at these things. The party is also committed towards helping the municipalities in whatever capacity to ensure that commuters, that residents have a viable, effective transportation system.
Thank you very much, Rae Banwarie. Now, John Aldag, transportation, how do we get people and products moving?
Right. Well, transportation, this is something that's near and dear to me and the constituents of Cloverdale-Langley City, as well as the government and of the Liberal Party. In 2015, when we were elected, we immediately committed $20 billion to public transit improvements across Canada, and we were able to secure $1.3 billion of that funding for south of the Surrey transit improvements. Money was allocated to the Surrey light rail project, which was the highest priority. Right. That has since changed, and that money we were able to maintain for the SkyTrain project to Langley. Talking to TransLink, I've had
many... correction, to Cloverdale.
Oh, sorry. No, to Langley City. It would go from King George Station down Fraser Highway to Langley City. Okay. And right now there's 5 kilometers worth of funding that's being secured to go into the Fleetwood area. Mm-hmm. We're short about $1.3 billion. Mm-hmm. Now, talking to TransLink, what they have is a plan, a 10-year plan. They need about $360 million per year in order to implement all aspects of that, including the completing the line down to Langley. Our government in this platform has committed $3 billion in ongoing funding to municipalities across Canada. So it's very realistic that TransLink could see their $360 million wish realized with our government, which would allow the project that's going to be getting underway shortly to continue on through construction right into Langley in the coming years. We've also invested money through the gas tax and other funds to making a number of transit improvements. We've helped TransLink convert a number of their buses to green technology. We've replaced the number of the SkyTrain fleet. A number of the cars had not been replaced for years and years, so we're giving bigger capacity. So transit, it is huge, and our government has made investments and will continue to make those investments to keep our people moving. I will say that I hear from people, constituents, when on the doorsteps, they spend up to 3 hours a day commuting, and we need to get them out of the cars. We need to get them back in the community and with their families.
Okay, thank you. And do I hear you committing to funding to build the SkyTrain all the way out to Langley?
Well, what I'm saying is our government has committed that $3 billion nationally for municipalities. TransLink is looking at, like I say, $360 million, and I will be working with my Surrey colleagues to ensure that we get that portion of money so that the Langley line gets built. That's where my focus is serving the constituents of Cloverdale-Langley City.
Great news for the people out in Langley.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to Pulse Politics with the Canadian federal election coming up on October 21st. Today's featured debate is Cloverdale-Langley. Before we let you go, we are going to be asking you one final question, and this is for our listeners who love the 90s, 2K, and today. We'll start off with the NDP's Rae Banwarie and the Liberals' John Aldag. The question is, what is your most favorite song from the 1990s?
I'm going to say Shoop.
Can you sing it?
That's a good one. Yeah, Salt and Pepper.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're going to get to play mine because mine would have to be the Macarena.
Oh, wow. All right.
Get the Monday morning going.
Are you going to do the moves for us?
I'll dance along. Absolutely. Let's get it happening.
That's right. This has been Pulse Politics. Thank you so much for being such good sports and joining us today right here on the show. Today's featured debate has been Cloverdale-Langley. We had the NDP's Rae Banwarie join us in studio, the Liberals' John Aldag, and we were hoping for the Conservative Tamara Jensen and Green Party's Caleb Nutt-Brown to join us as well in studio. However, they did decline our invitation. Now, tomorrow's interview focus, will be Langley-Aldergrove. So we hope you can join us between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. And we wish you all the best on October 21st, the federal election. Thank you again for joining us right here at the 107.7 Pulse FM studios.
Get informed with the next debate tomorrow with Pulse Mornings between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. #Pulse Politics.